Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 63, titled Hall of Fame Extravaganza. We are broadcasting live from the Primetime radio studio here in beautiful New Jersey. And on his iPhone, because his internet is out, my co-host, Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief, Nick Villano. Nick, you are in the garage right now. We don't have the benefits of a podcast that broadcasts fake live. We're live. It's after 9 p.m. Eastern. We're really live. And the only alternative we have is, Nick, get on your iPhone. The show must go on. How are you, man?
I feel about the same as I did at about 4:45 when I saw who got put into the Hall of Fame. Stan Fisher, the Maven. It's not the Hall of Maven this year. And obviously the two Devils, Alexander Mogilny, Patrick Elias, they didn't get it. And now I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here at a cross between looking really cool, like I'm on Around the Horn, and looking like I'm in a hostage video. So I'm trying to figure out how to balance those two things and kind of go viral with this thing. But right now, so forgive me, New Jersey Devils, Let's Go Devils podcast fans, because I'm not going to be able to respond to comments because I don't have them. But Sam will help me out with that, I hope. And I'm in the garage right now, so if you hear a bit of an echo, we're still figuring that part out. But I figured that was going to be the biggest one of our worries tonight, Sam. We have the direct connection to the internet, so I thought there was going to be no Wi-Fi issues. We were doing the speed tests, we were doing everything, and everything was passing with flying colors. And about 2 minutes before we were going to go live at 8:30 this week, it all went to hell. And now we are stuck with the hostage situation type video, but that's okay. That's okay, Sam, because we have plenty to talk about tonight, and I was not going to deprive the New Jersey Devils fans, the Let's Go Devils podcast fans, on Hall of Fame Day. It's fine. This is what makes Hall of Famer, Sam, is working through the problems, dealing with adversity, and not only succeeding, but excelling.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, first off, before we begin, we will talk about the 25th anniversary 1995 Cup team, but right now there is other stuff going on at the same time, a little ceremony, whatever. But getting back to the Hall of Fame, I stuck around at 4:15 watching NHL Network, 4:30, reading off the names. I think every name that was read off today was deserving. The Kevin Lowe, I was kind of like, but 6 Stanley Cups, and one of them was almost nearly impossible. Being on that team, you know what? You don't win 6 Stanley Cups by accident. I don't know anybody that can get that lucky.
Who was it? Who was it in basketball? The guy was always on those good teams. Was it Ron Harper? No, who was the guy that he was on the Lakers and on a couple other teams that won a lot of championships. He was on the Lakers and the Spurs, I think. Wasn't Ron? No, Ron Harper was another guy. I don't remember. This isn't a basketball podcast, but the point is that he won a bunch of championships and he was known for like a decent defensive guy, but like not a Hall of Famer. And like when you look at Kevin Lowe's stats, and here's what really made me mad, Sam, is that people weren't even acting like Patrick Elias was snubbed. I have a bad feeling about Elias. I feel like people just don't care about him and his work ethic. And like when you look at his impact on the ice, and a lot of these advanced stats don't go before 2008, 2007. But if you look at the advanced stats of Patrick Elias, he was one of the best players on the ice. And that was 2007 on. So it's not even talking about some of his best years. It's not talking about his A-line years or the 2001 where he was just a dominant player. So I think that the voters are going to continue to overlook Elias and Mogilny. I just don't get. He has the storyline. He has the stats. He's a builder of this brand. Who knows if Mogilny doesn't defect and come to the NHL, what other great Russian players never make it to the NHL? And that story alone should get him in the Hall of Fame, where he defected after the World Championships in Stockholm. I believe it was in Sweden. I think it was Stockholm. But that story alone should get him in. But then to have a dominant career, he had a 70-goal season. He won the cup with the 2000 Devils. He was just an amazing player. So to have him not in just doesn't make a lick of sense.
Yeah, you know what? I never really liked the Hall of Fame committee. Ever since the whole Pat Burns snub, getting him in while he was still alive, and then after he passed on, then you get him in. And that's always left a bitter taste in my mouth. But I mean, Jerome McGinley, obviously,
Yeah.
Hockey Hall of Famer. I mean, some of the names that Ken Holland, the great GM of the Detroit Red Wings during his tenure there, obviously well deserved as a builder. Yeah. But I have a feeling there is still that lingering anti-Devils bias of those teams that Jacques Lemaire, when it started with Jacques Lemaire and on, with the exception of, Niedermeyer, Scott Stevens, and Marty Brodeur, I think, I don't know, he's forever a Devil. End to end, Patrick Elias, he may have a little bit of a hard time. I don't know why. Just remember that all those big goals that he has had, all those big goals that he assisted, one of which was a sweep pass to Jason Arnott. Most people don't realize that 2001 Devils team that went to the Stanley Cup fell short against the Colorado Avalanche. He was part of the number one offensive team in the NHL that year. The Devils led the league in goals scored at a time when goal scoring was at a premium. He played, and remember one thing about Patrick Elias, the guy almost died during the lockout of 2004 and 5, gravely ill. Stan Fischler, who was on this podcast with us, even reiterated that. I mean, the guy was on his deathbed, gravely ill. We're not even joking about that. But of course, at the time there was no Twitter, there was none of that. All we had were news reports that he wasn't doing well. And with Lou Lamoriello as GM, you're not going to get any kind of information. The guy comes back. The Devils started the 2005-2006 season like crap. As soon as that new year turned and Elias came in, it was a totally different team, went to the playoffs, swept the Rangers just like that. And then, ran into, I believe they were playing Carolina, which they went on to win the Stanley Cup in 2006. So in the playoffs, Alexander McGillney, I hold him as high regard as Fetisov. I hold him in regard to being part of that European invasion, especially coming from Russia back in the late 80s. There's a reason why he wears that number 89 is because that was the year he came to North America, came over to the United States. I think that carries weight in terms of, I would say, I don't know if this is the proper term, of diversity. Okay, it's not all just North American ice hockey players. The upbringing, what a lot of these players have talked about, especially Russian players in the old Soviet Union. This is what Sergei Brilin says. He used to have to use his hockey tape You know, just and just to be one of the lucky ones to make it out. Evgeny Malkin, I think there were stories that when he escaped the KHL, all that, it was on the back of a pickup truck, basically smuggled out. No, this is true. I heard it on Sirius, actually XM Satellite Radio at the time.
Wait, Malkin, he was drafted in what, 2004?
2004, but there was that contract thing. Remember, the KHL pretty much owned you. You basically you didn't get out of your contract. There was no NHL KHL trade agreement. There was nothing back then.
There's that.
Look into it.
When you're 16 and you look at that contract, you're just trying
to feed yourself
and
your family. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, I should have done some. I'm just based on memory. I could be wrong, but I remember listening on XM, and the day that he left, that was that off season. I mean, that's the story I heard. It wasn't. There was no guns, I don't believe, or anything. It's just he left. So, but anyway, but we're talking about Hockey Hall of Fame, and I think just. No mention. I did like the interview that Craig Bunton did on NHL Network. I don't know if you caught that, Nick. It was very, I thought, very good. He gets to see Jerome McGinley, and they interviewed, but all worthy Hockey Hall of Famers. I just hope that Elias gets his due. I don't expect him to get in like right away, but I don't want anybody to forget about him. He did a lot for New Jersey. He was a mainstay. And just remember back in his first unrestricted free agency back in 2007, before the Devils were going into the Prudential Center, he got paid pretty well, and he was highly sought after by a lot of NHL teams. But he wound up.
The Rangers were the number one team trying to get him.
Yeah. Yeah, but all along he stayed in New Jersey. I believe Jamie Langenbrunner was also part of that free agency as well. Langs and Patrick Elias, re-signing, going into the new Prudential Center. Couldn't say that for Scott Gomez, but he promised us, "I'll see you in Newark." Remember those videos? And then that. We're not going to talk about Scott Gomez.
He got his. It's fine. He didn't.
Yep.
His. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, why don't you? I'm sorry.
Let's tell them what's happening first before you go get our first guest. Tell them what the deal is. The deal is we've got 3 Pucks and Pitchforks analysts coming on. We're to talk about this Hall of Fame decision and just kind of what happened, what went into it, and why these Devils deserve enshrinement. So you're going to get our first guest.
Yes.
Who's coming on first?
Steve Palumbo. So I'm going to go grab Steve. Now, you don't have access to the internet right now. I'm just looking. Yep, your studio is still offline there. How do we do this?
I got stuff to talk about. Sorry, fans. We're gonna have to. We'll get back to your questions. Sam will read me some questions later, but for now, I'm just gonna rant a little bit.
Yeah, why don't you rant? But I have to get your graphic to rant. I forgot to set that up today. Shame on me, right? Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create that graphic
just
right
throw me
now.
Full screen for now.
I'll throw you just full screen. We'll just get Steve.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Look at that. This is what I'm dealing with right now, folks. This is the start of the new studio. I got the jerseys up. We got, we're working on it. The desk is here, everything. I would show you, but that would probably mess with the bandwidth of the internet service that we're dealing with right now. Very delicate process. But as you can see, the echo will soon go away because we're going to build walls around this, and we're going to build a nice little ceiling. Nice little sound barriers, things to bring to you, the Let's Go Devils podcast fans. Speaking of the fans out there, a lot of you already know that we've been doing free agency week this week. Obviously, next week was supposed to be the start of free agency. So I figured we just take a real big look at everyone that's available. Earlier this week, we looked at the goalies and the defensemen. And, this right now, I'm actually working on the top right wings that would fit the Devils in free agency. I will warn you, after the top couple, it gets real murky in there. It does. But head to pucksandpitchforks.com. Also today, in the middle of all this, I kind of got the idea of an interesting thing. Just kind of like I said, we're just trying to look back and give you folks content. So I did a piece today on the 5 moves looking back at 2019 that would have changed history. I guess it's not history because it's just this year, but it would have changed our outlook. And a couple of them are interesting. Obviously, there's a lot to go off of. I could have did stuff with the draft. I could have impacted PK Subban and the trade they brought him here. But with all that in mind, I thought that it would make a lot more sense to do the 5 moves that I was talking about. They're very interesting. So head to pucksandpitchforks.com. Make sure that you click on all those stories. Free agency week, and I know Vinny's been hitting a bunch of stuff too. We got Steve. Steve's coming on next, and he's got a couple pieces out that are real interesting during the quarantine. So head to pucksandpitchforks.com. Sam, you're on pucksandpitchforks.com all the time.
All the time. I mean, you guys have great content. Plus, when I do the social media on Let's Go Devils podcast, guess who I'm copying off of? It's kind of like plagiarism. I'll just retweet that article. Or I'll just read it, some of the headlines in a pinch, and then I'll read it later. It's a great website, pucksandpitchforks.com. Speaking of Pucks and Pitchforks, out in California, we have Steve Palumbo, Pucks and Pitchforks contributor. You can find him on Twitter at Faultline Hockey. Steve, how's your internet going today?
Fortunately, my internet is working, so at least we got that going for us. But hey, Nick's a trooper. He made it on.
Yeah. I mean,
you know what? I do a lot. I do a lot to make this work, and sometimes it's more times than not. Sometimes Sam asks me to sit down. Sam's got a guest for me, and just talk to the guest. And sometimes I ask 35 people and get a lot of no's, and then the internet goes out, and then I gotta hang on my boys from Pucks and Pitchforks to put together a Hall of Fame extravaganza. So you know what? We gotta put quality into our quantity. So let's go.
Yep, and we do everything live.
So, Steve, I know a couple weeks ago you were actually, I don't know if it was a week or a couple weeks ago. Time is a strange process when we're in a pandemic, but a little while ago you were talking about the Patrick Elias nomination for the Hall of Fame and why he deserved it. So first, I want to know what your reaction was when he didn't get in this afternoon.
To be honest, I wasn't really surprised that Patrick didn't get in. You kind of expected that. There wasn't a whole lot of buzz around him from the regular media. I mean, obviously there's a lot of buzz from Devils fans, and we all know that Patrick is deserving of it, but there were, other players that were getting more attention. And so when they made the announcement, he wasn't on there. I wasn't really surprised. I was more surprised about McGillney not getting a nod. But as far as Patrick, I know his day will come, but I wasn't super shocked that it wasn't this time.
So you say his day will come, and you weren't that shocked, and you brought up a bunch of good points. There was very little buzz about him specifically. I saw some lists that listed 9 candidates and didn't have him on there, and it was just baffling. Why do you think that? What is it about Elias that he's just not in the mainstream focus? He was a goal scorer. He was a champion. He checks all these boxes, but he's not even. A lot of these people aren't even looking at him.
It's much like a lot of the Devils of that era. They were very professional, very quiet. They went around their business. They just did what they needed to do to win. He was very much, playing for the name on the front. And, unlike some of the other Devils Hall of Famers, Elias spent his entire career in New Jersey, drafted by the Devils, went through the farm system, spent his entire career with the Devils. He never won any scoring titles or anything like that. He was never, super flashy, but, for those of us who got to experience him game in, game out, he was everything that you would want in a superstar and a franchise, leader. And I think that gets lost in a lot of what made the Devils so successful in those early, and during those cup runs. And there was nobody that was ever elevated above anybody else. It was just all for the logo on the front. And I think that kind of doesn't have him stick out in people's minds when they think of, who's a Hall of Famer, who's coming up, who is somebody that is worthy of it. And I just don't think that his name pops out right away.
So you also said that you expect him to get his due at some point, but if all this saying is true, it's possible that he might just never get his due. And there'll always be new players. There'll always be people you have to get in the first ballot, like Jerome McGinley got this year, and Hossa got this year too, which I was a little surprised about. Does that worry you at all that maybe Elias won't ever get his due?
Well, obviously there's always that thought that, hey, he's not going to get recognized for that and never get in. But I mean, I have to think at some point enough times his name is going to be brought up. I mean, Kevin Lowe got in, which was a shocker to me. But I think when you run, it sucks to say this, but when you kind of start going down the line and his name is there, eventually there's going to be a time where they're going to be like, you know what, Elias is better than candidate B, C, D, E, and that he'll eventually get recognized. And I think if I don't want to go 15, 20 years without him getting in. I think he's too good for that. And if you look at the numbers, you look at the statistics, you look at his championships, I think he'll be more of a focal point. Maybe not next year, maybe not the year after, maybe 5, 6 years from now, he's going to be somebody that is really going to be strongly considered.
Yeah, I'm trying to agree. I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm not the optimistic one on the Pucks and Pitchforks crew. I think I've made that pretty clear because I control the Twitter account and I get yelled at a lot, but that's okay. It's fine. I deserve it most of the time. But when it comes to like looking back and those old school teams, like I do look fondly. I don't have much negative to say. Patty obviously played maybe one of the biggest roles besides maybe Marty and the Scots to the 2000-2003 team. So let me ask you, what's your fondest memory of Elias just throughout his, I believe he had, was it 16 or 18 years in New Jersey? Either way, what was your fondest memory of Elias throughout his career in New Jersey?
Honestly, there's quite a few. One thing is Elias and I share the same birthday, so we've always had that kind of connection that way. I've been connected to him that way, and so that's always made me more fond of him, I guess. But for me, this is something that took place after they won the Cup in 2000. Sikora gets knocked out. He's not at the game. That the A line was such, that line was so dynamic and so exciting. But to see Elias skating around with the Sikora jersey on backwards, holding the cup, I mean, I'm getting chills right now. To me, that is one of my most fondest moments. That just exemplified who Elias was as a person, as a teammate, and what he meant to New Jersey. And I have a photo that I have of that Elias signed, and then after Sikora got traded to Anaheim, I was finally able to get Sikora to sign it. So that's one of my most prized possessions, and that's a moment to me that is just exemplified who Patrick Elias was.
Yeah. And you saw that a lot with him. He had a chance to take the big money with the Rangers. He decided to stick with the Devils once Lou opened the piggy bank a little bit more. Sam mentioned his fight with I believe it was hepatitis back during the lockout, and just the way he dealt with the whole. I mean, the way that he was named captain and then the captaincy was stripped from him was just a fiasco, and he never really made much noise about it. It was funny. It was just like he was made out to be a diva at times, and it was just like, what? And it was just funny. It was funny how it all worked out. But looking ahead in 20 years, right now it's been, we were talking about, me and Sam talking about 25 years since the Devils won the 1995 Stanley Cup. I think that anniversary is today, I believe Sam said.
Yep.
But we know how we look back at Claude Lemieux and his contributions. We know what we look back at, some of those big names, Valery Zelepukin and some of the other big, or big, medium, small, all the names on that team because it's been so long. Let's fast forward. Elias only retired, a few years ago at this point. What do you think his legacy is going to be when I look at his career 20 years from now?
Yeah, I just think that his legacy is going to be one as a team first winner. Now that, there's just different things flooding back. Obviously the goal against Philadelphia and then breaking the record on St. Patrick's Day. He actually helped put the Devils on the map and continue to make them relevant. When the team won the Cup in 95, it was a lockout shortened season. It was all about the trap. I don't think the team got the full recognition that they actually deserved. But, guys like Elias come along and they continue to propel the Devils to the forefront, having successful regular seasons. They're able to carry that over, win a couple more Stanley Cups, and really solidify the Devils as a championship caliber franchise, as a premier role model franchise. And I think that's what his legacy is going to be. He helped establish what we think of the Devils. A lot of the younger generation right now, or the newer fans, are only used to losing. But those of us who have been following the team for a long time, there was a time where other NHL franchises modeled themselves after the Devils. They looked to the Devils and what Lou did and how the players, were very professional. No facial hair. It was just all about winning. And I think that's something that Elias, personified it and was to help to legitimize with his success with the franchise.
All right, Steve, last question. Make this real quick, but it's going to be a thinker. Do you think someone's going to break Elias's record, and do you have a name in mind that you think would beat his points record for franchise leader on the Devils?
Oh, boy. I have little confidence right now in anybody in this team being a dynamic scoring threat, but my hope is that Nico Hischier is a point producer and somebody that can at least challenge for it. He may not get the goals, but as a facilitator and somebody who dictates play, I'm hoping that Nico Hischier is somebody that at least pushes that. But on the roster, and not even Jack Hughes, I don't see anybody that is going to be that next great player. Maybe that player comes in this draft, who knows? But Hischier is the only one that conceivably I can see even having a chance.
All right, Steve. Well, great insight. I appreciate you digging deep into Patty. It was, it was a disappointing day for us Devils fans. None of our people got in, but I guess as they say, there's always next year. And Steve, there's always the next podcast. We'll have you on for a game that probably confuses us all because for some reason you're the guest I like to confuse the most. But we'll have you on in a couple weeks and we'll look forward to your next piece.
Yep, Sergei Brylin. My next piece is on Sergei Brylin. Watch out for it.
Little teaser. Love it, Sam.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve.
All right, guys.
Oop. I was a little bit sorry, Steve. Don't take it personal. Hand on the trigger. I didn't think he was going to say something, but well, that was you know what, Nick? I'm thinking. I'm reading some of these Facebook lives. Matt Jr. writes, "I do not think Claude, meaning Claude Lemieux, would be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Great player, but also created a lot of chaos, especially rivalry between the Red Wings and Avalanche." Well, how many cups has Claude Lemieux won? He's won a lot of cups. One in Montreal, twice with the Devils, with Colorado. That's 4 cups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4?
4 cups. Yeah, I think it's 4. Okay. Let me ask Facebook Live, since we're live right now. How many cups have
usually look this up, but I have no internet, so.
Yeah. You don't have the internet. I thought you had all that knowledge in your head, Nick.
I am what they think you are. Pre-2000, I know some. I can't spit stats from pre-2000 though. I can tell you what happened. I can't tell you numbers and things like that. That's still just a little bit before when I was keeping stats. You don't start keeping me. Some kids keep stats. I wasn't that kid. I was a kid that was punching holes through walls because I was so passionate about my team. But yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Well, let me get Dave Brown. I was texting him before. He said, "I'm ready whenever," and I'll get Dave Brown.
We're going to talk some old school Soviet Union. Dave Brown wrote a really nice piece. I know he spent a couple days on it. So if you got time, go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Read his post on McGillney. It went up this morning, but him missing out like he did, and I said it before, it doesn't make sense. Like, I can understand Elias because Elias played just on the Devils. The way that the national media looks at the Devils and those teams, like you never get when they rank the best dynasties, the Devils dynasty never gets put in there. And 3 cups in 8 years should be considered that, especially when you're making the playoffs in between. And you have a dominant goalie, you have a dominant defense, a lot of high-powered situations, and then you got Alexander Mogilny who comes in for the 2000 season. Helps them win Stanley Cup. He plays really well in 2001. Goes to another Stanley Cup. That team was just ridiculous, and I understand that maybe I think his problem is, and I wrote to somebody on Twitter who kind of was talking about like he just doesn't have some of the moxie that other people have, but like people forget he was on the 2000 Stanley Cup team in the national media because it was all about the A-line. It was all about Brodeur. It was all about Stevens and Niedermeyer. And Sam was just telling the audience that people kind of overlooked the fact that Mogilny was even on that 2000 Stanley Cup team because there were so many storylines going on. There was the overtime goal. There was so much going on, and I think people just kind of overlooked the fact that Mogilny was there, and they shouldn't because he was a key contributor. He wasn't out of this world like he was in previous seasons in the postseason that year, but he was still a key contributor to that team during the regular season. He definitely helped a lot in the playoffs. I don't get it, but I guess we're going to dig into it right now.
Well, before we get Dave on, just to reiterate the point, like back in the late 90s, the Devils lost out on the Doug Gilmour when he left, and then Dave Andreychuk spent quite a bit of time, and then he left before that 1999-2000 season. And that trade, bringing Alexander Mogilny, I mean, I remember when that trade was done, I'm telling you, it was like, we got Mogilny, finally, because he was always rumored to come to New Jersey. So on the Nova Product Design Hotline, from Pucks and Pitchforks blog, he's a great contributor. His name is Dave Brown. Dave, you're on with Nick and Sam. How are you, man?
Hey, boys. I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
I was having a good day up until like 4:30, and then it all went to hell. But that's neither here nor there. But speaking of 4:30, Dave, I want to know. I asked Steve this when it came to Elias, but I want to know when you saw the announcement come out and you saw that Mogilny didn't make it again. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, to be honest with you, I was pretty perplexed. I'm baffled that he did not get inducted. I thought if there was any year that he would get inducted, this would be it. And to put it into the context, Marian Hossa got in the Hall of Fame. Nothing against Marian Hossa. Phenomenal goal scorer, phenomenal player. I know our own Pucks and Pitchforks contributor, Vinny Parisi, adores him. But if you put it into context, Marian Hossa scored 52 more goals and 102 more points than Mogilny did, but in 319 more games. How does Hossa get in as a first ballot Hall of Famer, yet we're sitting here talking about how Mogilny's not? I'm just baffled by that.
That's a lot more games. That's a lot. And I know that Mogilny, I know a lot of people look at Mogilny as like a high peak that didn't last, but I just don't think that that's true. I mean, yeah, his peak was better than some of his other years, but like you could look at literally every other player who's had that same argument where the peak is, yeah, of course the peak is better than the rest of the career because the peak is the peak. But I think it's just because like Alexander Mogilny had that outlandish 73 goal season. But why don't you help me with this argument? Because I can't have it anymore, Dave. What is the argument to put Alexander Mogilny into the Hall of Fame strictly on what he did on the ice? We could talk about the defection a little bit later, but strictly when it comes to him playing on the ice, why is he a Hall of Famer?
I could probably give you 473 reasons why he should be in Hall of Fame. That's how many goals he has career-wise. And also, you have to think, if we're talking about numbers, he missed a year and a half due to NHL lockouts. So he would get to that magic number of 500 goals. I feel like that is like the magic number in hockey sense, in the hockey world, to be a shoo-in Hall of Famer. And he falls 27 goals short of that. But in retrospect, had there not been even one lockout, he probably would have 500. He was very, very underrated as a two-way hockey player. People always talked about the offense. Well, he also knew the game. His hockey IQ was high. He made other players on the ice better. Pat LaFontaine, I was reading up on Mogilny a couple days ago, and LaFontaine said that he was one of the best line mates that he ever played with. So he made other guys better too. And if you just ever watched a hockey game with Alexander Mogilny, you would see how great of a player he was. He was a winner. He went to 2 Stanley Cup Finals appearances, winning 1. He bought into the Devils system. And for a guy like that, for a guy who loves to score goals, that's not an easy thing to do, to go to Jersey and play within the system. He scored 43 goals in 2001. If the Devils didn't play a certain structured way, he would have eclipsed 50 goals easy. And I don't know. I being a hockey fan for essentially my whole life, I watched him. Even before he was on the Devils, I admired the way he played. And honestly, I don't think it has much to do with what he did on the ice. If you want to get into if you want to dig deeper, like maybe he was very humble. He was quiet. He wasn't a big media guy. He didn't give you that, after he scored a goal, the Teemu Selanne signature goal score, or what Teemu Selanne would do or other guys would do after they scored. He was very humble after he scored, didn't show much emotion. And I can't help but think there's a bias against him for some reason.
What do you think that is?
I read up on Mogilny, especially the past couple of days, and they said that his relationship with the Buffalo media was a little frosty. There was some tension there. Now, I didn't see any issues when he was in Jersey. I didn't hear anything when he was in Vancouver or later Toronto. Maybe that plays into it. Maybe he wasn't the sort of person that people wanted him to be. Maybe, being a Russian, the language barrier, him not really being comfortable with the media. Maybe, and I'm just guessing here. I'm thinking maybe that plays a part. Other than that, I haven't read anything negative about him.
Dave,
you make a very interesting point.
Sorry.
I don't mean to cut you off, Sam, but he makes a very interesting point about the media thing, because I've heard before, and I'm trying to remember. It was somebody who was talking to. I don't remember if it was on air or off air, but having that conversation that a lot of the overseas players, especially the Russian players, come off as cold to the media because a lot of the times they don't understand the question, and then they get frustrated that they don't understand the words that are coming out of their mouth. So they feel like they're going to say something that's going to be taken out of context because they took the question differently. So eventually they just stop answering questions because they're like, well, I answered it thinking I was answering this question, but really it came off like this question. So, a lot of times it's just, it comes off as they aren't nice to the media, or the media doesn't like them because they don't give them the answers they want. But a lot of it is just frustration from them, and maybe, the media could do a little bit better to help engage with those players and help close the gap for those overseas players. I'm not saying that they should go and learn Russian because, you got Swedish players. Well, I know most of them speak English, but, you got Swiss players, you got players from other countries, you got French Canadians. So I understand you can't speak all of them, but it would be nice if they tried to, instead of having those biases towards players, tried to bridge the gap a little bit. But Sam, what were you going to say?
Well, what I was going to say, wanted to see if Dave would agree. You talk about the era that McGillney played, right? The 80s was high flying, high scoring. There was practically no defense, right? It was offense off offense. The 90s started to get tougher. It was a rough game in the 90s and even mid 2000s. Dave alluded to the fact that there were work stoppages. I believe there was a strike and 2 lockouts. And when I think of Alexander McGillney, I also think of Pavel Bure playing in that era. I mean, there was a lot of clutch and grabbing. If they played now in 2020, that speed, that skill, and I would even say the Rocket, Pavel Bure, the Russian Rocket, and McGillney. I'll tell you what you would do. Why don't you put Pavel Bure, McGillney on a line with Evgeny Malkin centering? How damn good they would be.
Bore and McGillney would easily score 60-plus goals, especially in today's game with how many power plays are awarded and the speed of the game and less emphasis on clutching and grabbing. Like, he would easily get 60, 70-plus goals. And funny,
add in the red line. Add in the red line as well, because they played with the red line. No 2-line passing, and and there was no trapezoid.
100%. And it's funny that you mention, you guys both have mentioned Pavel Bure, and you could also throw in Sergei Fedorov there. Those 2 guys are in the Hall of Fame. And if you want to put things in perspective, Pavel Bure his points per game in his career was 1.1. Mogilny's was 1.042, and Fedorov's was 0.945. Fedorov has only 10 more goals than Mogilny, but he played in 258 more games. Bore played a little bit less. He dealt with a lot of injuries, and Mogilny has more goals and more points than Bore. So if we're talking about other great Russians who have played in the NHL, how are those guys in? Mogilny's not. Like, again, I'm usually the positive guy at Pucks and Pitchforks. I'm usually very positive, very upbeat, but I'm just like, I want to get in front of my keyboard right now and just write an angry piece about how he cannot be in. It's just insane.
Well, first of all, I will absolutely take that angry piece. I love angry pieces. They're some of my favorite pieces. But secondly, I just want to know, what do you think that needs to be done to get him in? He's on, what was this, 13 years? What needs to be done to get him in?
Well, I'm all for Pucks and Pitchforks, hashtag get Mogilny in, starting maybe like January of next year. Maybe if we beat the drum down enough, people will actually start listening, and people will, put him in. So there's a lot of times you work the social media hashtags. Maybe if all the Devils fans come together, we could start some sort of, I don't know, fun little campaign or something to get him in. But it really shouldn't come to that. I think the people who have the powers that be are just not doing their job. And we could campaign all we want, but ultimately it's up to them. So, and this is a guy who only played with the Devils for a year and change. Obviously he was a big contributor to 2000 and both 2001. But I mean, I feel like really passionate about this, and just as a hockey fan, not even as a Devils fan, it's perplexing. It's crazy. You guys,
Dave,
do you guys have any other good ideas about what we could do to get him in? I mean, I know
listen,
both you guys.
I sent my first email to the Hockey Hall of Fame this week that had the Hall of Maven mentioned in there. So I'm starting to get into the Hall of Fame ear. We'll see. We'll see if I can venture in and see if I can get to some decision makers. They're very hard to get. They're very hidden well. They're not easy for any old person to contact. So I'm going to have to ask, beg, plead, yell, do a couple things to get into the ears of some people and bang that McGillney and Stan Fischler drum as hard as I can.
I'd be all for that for sure. I think if we annoy them enough, maybe people will listen. But and one more thing, I would love to hear why. Like, you always hear why players are enshrined or inducted into the Hall of Fame. I want someone to come out and say why someone is not inducted to the Hall of Fame. Like, give us a reason why. I wouldn't even just to save everyone time. Oh, is he going to get in the Hall of Fame this year? Is he not? Just tell us why he's not in. And I would be more happy and content if, with a little honesty, just tell us straight up, this guy's in, or this guy did not get in because of this. I think that, they hide behind their little fancy offices or whatever, and they don't really give the fans what they want to hear in terms of why a player is not inducted.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate having you on. Sam, you got anything else for Dave, or?
No.
I'm sorry.
I want to. Wait.
Go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
No, you were talking to me, right? Sorry, I'm must be mishearing stuff. Sorry about that, Dave.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead.
Nick, did you ask me a question? Or were you asking Dave? Maybe I misheard it.
You literally heard nobody. You just go, Sam. You just go.
All right. Well, Dave,
I could ask you a question. My fault.
Oh, okay. It doesn't matter. The confusion. This has been a fun podcast so far. But thanks, Dave, for coming on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.
That is Dave Brown of Pucks and Pitchforks blog. We're gutting it out, Nick. We're gutting it out. I'm on a losing streak. This could be the podcast where I knock out Vinny Parisi for the game.
Actually, Sam, we have a surprise for you.
Oh, what happened?
The surprise is that Vinny has actually come up with the game. And you're facing me. Because
that's right. That's right. That's right.
You have a real shot tonight because I'm not good at this. The host is always the person who needs to facilitate and help bring people to where they need to be. But I'm putting myself in your chair, the analyst chair, and I'm going to try to keep your losing streak going. But first, Vinny's going to come on. He's going to talk a little Hall of Fame first. But then we're going to do a game that I'm going to have to try to figure out how to do because it involves headphones. But, we'll work it out on the fly. This is a game on the Let's Go Devils podcast. We always work it out on the fly. We're going live. We don't do this fake live. None of this fake live.
Yeah.
Name another hockey podcast that's going live and doing games and let you see all the dirt and the cracks.
Or giving out
us without
T-shirts. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention this. Friday on the Let's Go Devils podcast network, we're going to be doing a live reaction, live virtual party after the NHL draft lottery Friday. We're going to pop on, have a good time. Hopefully we're going to be like, oh, we got number one again. Oh my God, I don't care about the other potential 2 picks. I'll be speaking French as well. But anyway, let me get Vinny the host. You talk, Nick.
That's good. It's kind of funny, and I was actually talking to the other Pucks and Pitchforks writers. If we get number 1 again, obviously we're going to hear, the Edmonton Oilers 2.0, and it doesn't matter, we're still going to be terrible, and blah, 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 blah. And honestly, I don't care. Before I was literally saying, I don't want the number 1 overall pick because I don't want to hear that. I'd rather just do it with, normal kind of picks. And, I don't care. I absolutely do not care. If you want to change the lottery system after we win, if you want to make it so people can't win after you won every 5 years, I don't care. Do whatever you want. But get me Alex Lafreniere, because everything after that, it has its question marks, but Lafreniere is just elite. And he's a winger, which is something we need. You put him; he immediately jumps into the lineup. You put him next to Nico or Jack, and that's an elite line already. Imagine Nico, Palmieri, and Lafreniere off the bat. Imagine the talent of that. I don't care. Call me the Edmonton Oilers. Call me the Saskatoon Sharks. Call me the Manitoba Moose. Call me the Spokane Cheese. Call me whatever you want. Call me the United States Russian national team. I do not care what you call me. I'm going to say we have a team that's going to dominate you for years to come, and we don't have a management that's going to sign the Milan Lucic's or go all in on Cam Talbot at goal, and the second he's slightly not great, you give up on him, and just a lot of bad move after bad move after bad move. Drafted Nail Yakupov. When honestly, that was just a really bad draft. There wasn't really a lot to go with. I'm sure there are better picks. I had to re-jog my memory by looking back at it. But, I don't care what these other fans call us. They're always going to call us things. They're always going to bring up the trap as the reason why we won our championships, even though we didn't terribly use it for the 2 of them. They're always going to bring up the trap for Martin Brodor's greatness and his win total, even though he played for more than I believe it was, I'm trying to remember the year he retired, but at least he played half his career after the lockout. And you're still going to bring up the trap? Nobody was using the trap after the lockout, especially not the Devils. He took a team with Zach Parise and Ilya Kovalchuk to the Stanley Cup Finals, and you're still going to mention the trap? So this is the things we're going to have to be facing if we win the number 1 overall pick again. But we should not care. We should be going hard once again for that number 1 overall pick. We already got Nico Hischier in there. He's a bona fide stud. Jack Hughes left a lot to be desired this season, especially at 5 versus 5 play, but he was never going to be a superstar year 1. I thought he could get a 40-point season this year. I thought his ceiling was a 60-point season. He didn't come close to either of them. I understand. It is what it is. We could wipe our hands clean and move on. I know he's been talking about gaining weight and getting better in the offseason. Great. Love it. He's been talking on podcasts. He seems like maybe this season humbled him. Maybe that's what he needed. But either way, get me Lafreniere. And if I'm saying it wrong, you guys can let me know in the comments and I'll read them later. But I believe but he's been just stupid good. He was so good in the World Junior Classic, just seeing him skate around, seeing how he could score goals. And if we pick number 2, if we do get the 2nd overall pick, I know a lot of people like Stutzel, and I'm still all in on Quentin Byfield. I think he's just by far the 2nd best talent. Got a little draft talk in there, Sam, since you were gone. Figured I can,
Oh yeah. just like this entire podcast, technical difficulties of connecting to the great Vinny Parisi, but I got him on the Nova Product Design Hotline. Vinny Parisi, you are our game host. How are you tonight?
What's going on, gentlemen? How you doing? Thanks for having me once again.
We're good, but you're going to have to explain the rules to us in a little bit. First, I do want to get your initial reaction. You know, we're short on time because of the large amount of technical difficulties, but I do want just your reaction to today's Hall of Fame announcement. You know, go quickly on McGillney and then go quickly on Elias.
Okay, so normally I'm the optimistic one of the crew. I'm Vinny optimistic. You all read my, our pieces that we do, and I'm always the one pro this, pro that. I knew neither of them were getting it. For me, it was Jerome McGinley, Marian Hossa, and then if somebody else squeaked in, it would be an old timer, and it ended up being, what's his name from the Sharks GM?
Kevin Lowe. Or Doug Wilson, yeah.
And Kevin Lowe. So I really didn't see it, but I also don't like it because, they both have numbers that support being in the Hall of Fame, especially for me, Elias. But McGillney, he was such a great player for a long time, and he spent some good years with the Devils. And, he maxed out at 83 points. That's a really good year for the Devils in a year where they were a really good team. So if you're one of the best players on a team like that, normally you get a little bit more consideration. And then for Elias, I actually did a piece that'll be out tomorrow comparing his numbers to Hossa, who I think is, I know some people were heeing and hawing about him. I think Hossa is absolutely a Hall of Famer. I know I'm a little biased, but for me, it's like, that was easy. But it's not poo-pooing Hossa to say that Elias is right there with him. So that's where I'm at on it. Elias next year's tough too because you got the Sedins and Yager. It's going to be a while for Elias, unfortunately, even though he has numbers that support being in.
Wait, is Yager really up already? Was it that long ago that he had that little ditty with the Flames?
Yeah. I saw on Twitter, and the tweet that I saw was misinformed, but Daniel and Henrik Sedin and then Yager.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a near impossibility for both of them. So we're going to have to push the Twitter charge. Okay. Well, I will ask you one quick question though. I know we had Dave on earlier to talk about Alexander McGillney. Sorry about that. Dropped the phone. And he mentioned you, and he was talking about your love of Hossa and your self-proclaimed bias. And he said that McGillney had about 100 less points than Hossa, I think he said, but in about 347 less games. Now, I'm going to give you a chance to quickly retort on that. Do you think that Hossa was that much better of a candidate that he gets in on the first time, and we're now in the teens of Alexander McGillney waiting for his shot?
I do definitely think there's bias towards Hossa from more than just people like me because of, team success and who he played with and where he played. But Hossa was good, man. When you watch those games, it was easy to see that he put Chicago over the edge. They don't win a cup without him. I wholeheartedly believe that. They were so close in 2009, and then they add him, and then they win 3 out of the next 6. And then it fell apart when he left, almost exclusively. So it depends on how much you associate team success and regular season success with the Hall of Fame. But I definitely think it's closer than, yes, McGillney was better offensively as far as points per game. But if you're asking me who I'd rather have in their prime on the Devils, I'm probably rolling Hossa.
In their prime? I mean, in his prime, McGillney scored 73 goals.
Yeah, 76 was his career high. I have his numbers right in front of me. Yeah, that's crazy. So maybe they had a a span of, maybe his 2 or 3 peak years were a little bit better. So it's definitely close. And I'm not arguing that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. It's an extremely disappointing day to be a Devils fan for me because I want both of these guys to be in. So it's close for me.
All right. Well, now that we've talked Hall of Fame and we're all sufficiently sad that the Devils have been overlooked once again, why don't we give some Devils fan a win tonight? And why don't you pull out the game, Vinny Parisi, so you can make one of me or Sam look like a fool. So first, why don't you explain how we play your game? By the way, Vinny, you're the first person. Last week we broke records by letting Alex from the Hockey Writers be the first person to ever play the game as a guest. Now you're breaking records by being the first person who's not me to come up with a game. So tell us how you're going to break that record tonight, Vinny. With what game?
Okay, so it's a very highly intelligent game that I came up with. It takes a big brain to come up with a game quite like this. It's called Are You Smarter Than Nick and Sam? And to play Are You Smarter Than Nick and Sam, each of you whoever's turn it is, the opposite needs to remove their headphones or mute their computer, whatever you got to do to not be able to hear. And I'm going to read whoever's answering 10 questions. And the person who gets the most right out of those 10 questions is going to be deemed the smarter of the two.
I don't know how we're going to do this one because, Nick, you don't have...
I would imagine that I would just go first, Sam.
Oh, yeah. All right. So
Yeah,
I should take off my headset right now?
And then I'll wave at the camera like this.
Okay.
It's time for you to come back.
All right. You guys can go.
Okay. All right, Vinny. I'm ready to be made a fool of because I'm going to not look very good in these. But, all right. I'm ready when you are.
And a little bit of a disclaimer. I tried to make these where if you follow the team somewhat regularly, you should be able to get a good amount of them. But then again, some people, I'm one of them, stink at trivia and can't think on their feet. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If you can't think on your feet, trivia games are hard for you. But just a little disclaimer there. And I'm going to keep count of how many you got right, but I'm not going to tell you the answers till after.
Oh, man. Okay.
All right. So, Nick, question number 1. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. So, as we know, the Devils won their first ever Stanley Cup in franchise history in 1995. It was a short season following a lockout. How many teams were in the NHL when the Devils won the Stanley Cup in 1995?
$23.
Question number 2. Name 3 players from the Devils' inaugural season of 1982-83.
All right, there's Chico Rash. Aaron Broughton. And 82, 83. Or what's the name is on the tip of my tongue and I can't. I know this. It's not him. All right, I'm gonna pass because I know everything that's coming in my head. I know got drafted by the Devils early, so pass.
Okay, and we could use that as a tiebreaker if so, 2 of the 3 or 1 of the 3, however many.
Okay, that's fine.
In that season of 1982-83, in the Patrick division, the Devils came in second to last place. The Devils came in second to last place in the Patrick division. How many wins did they have?
$11.
Question number 4.
I think it was 17, but okay.
Scott Stevens is an all-time great Devil. He really broke out for them in the 1993-94 season when he ended up having his career high in points. How many goals did he score that season?
23. I don't know why that number's stuck in my head, but apparently I would keep answering 23.
I don't hate that number, so. Question number 5. What year was the first year that the Devils made the playoffs?
$88.
Question number 6. Claude Lemieux and Scott Stevens won the Conn Smythe Trophy for the Devils in 1995 and 2000, respectively. Who won the Conn Smythe Trophy when the Devils won the Stanley Cup for the 3rd time in 2003?
That should have been brought. It was John Sebastian Jaguar. Still mad about that.
The Devils, question number 7. The Devils acquired Ilya Kovalchuk from the Atlanta Thrashers for Johnny Oduya, Nicholas Bergfors, Patrice Cormier, and a first-round pick. One other player was traded to the Devils with Kovalchuk. Who was it?
I saw this not too long ago, but I don't remember. I'll pass on that.
Question number 8. What team drafted Brian Rafalski?
Nobody.
Question number 9. Who scored the first hat trick in New Jersey Devils history?
Aaron Broughton.
All right. Question number 10. What town is Lou Lamoriello's son Chris born in?
What town was his son born in?
Yeah.
Is there a hospital in East Rutherford? I'll say there's got to be some kind of significance to this, so I'll say Edison, New Jersey.
All right. Waving Sam.
All right, Sam, we can come back.
Thank goodness. I was getting bored out of my mind.
Yeah, that was a bunch of questions about, like, the teams that I wasn't even born for, so you're going to crush me on this.
All righty. Are you already making excuses, Nick?
I am. I'm very good at
sit
excuses.
back here.
I am champion of excuses. So that's why I make up the games. I am the creative type. I am not the statistical type.
Okay. All right, Vinny. Why don't you ask away?
All right. And I totally agree with Nick, too. Being the guy hosting the game is 10 times more fun than being the guy playing the game because you get to sit there and bask in the contestants' misery. It's so much fun. All right. Question number 1 for Sam. The Devils won the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history in 1995. How many teams were in the league in 1995 when they won?
Well, the Devils are an original 21 team. I would say 28.
Okay. Question number 2. Name 3 players from the Devils' inaugural season in 1982-1983.
Hector Marini, Don Lever, and Gary Howitt.
Okay, question number 3. In that inaugural season, the Devils came in second to last place in the Patrick division, but they had the least amount of points. Or they had the least amount of points, but the least amount of wins. How many wins was that?
15?
Question number 4. Scott Stevens is an all-time great New Jersey Devils player. He really broke out in the 1993-94 season, and he had his career high in points. How many goals did he score that year?
I like to say 18.
Okay. Question number 5. What was the first year that the Devils made the playoffs?
88.
Question 6.
Even I got that one.
Claude Lemieux and Scott Stevens won the Conn Smythe Trophy in 1995 and 2000, respectively. Who won the Conn Smythe Trophy for the Devils' third Stanley Cup in 2003?
I'm going to say Martin Brodeur because I don't care who really won it. So I'll just say Martin Brodeur. I'll fall on the sword on that one.
Oh, Sam. Who actually won the Conn Smythe Trophy in 2003?
No,
Give
let
yourself-
him fall on the sword. Let him fall on
No,
the sword.
I'm falling on the sword.
Come on.
Because
No.
I don't recognize that Conn Smythe winner.
You guys both need every point you could get, so I thought you would take it. But here we go.
No. Based on I'm a man of principle. Marty got hosed.
I respect it. No, I respect it. I'm going to be a man of principle like that going forward on this show.
Okay.
Question number 7. Ilya Kovalchuk was traded to the Devils from the Atlanta Thrashers for Johnny Oduya, Nicholas Bergfors, Patrice Cormier, and a first-round pick in the 2010 draft. What player was traded to the Devils for Kovalchuk? Or with
What?
Kovalchuk. With Kovalchuk.
I don't even remember. It was probably a throw-in. Obviously, it's not Danny Heatley. Oh, I don't even know. I don't even remember any of those Thrashers back in the day.
Yeah,
Carl
everyone always
Rakunik?
on the younger
I have no
side, and I don't remember. I didn't even remember this. What did you say?
No, I was just making up stuff. Carl Rakunik, but he wasn't part of that. Oh,
Is that a
no.
pass?
Yeah, it's a pass. I don't know. I remember everybody else but that person.
That's how I was when I was writing this question.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 8. Who drafted Brian Rafalski?
Who drafted? Well, he wasn't
Yep.
drafted. He was undrafted. Duh.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
All right. Question number 9. Who scored the first hat trick in New Jersey Devils history?
Aaron Broughton
And
or Joe
the final
Scarella? Yeah.
What town was Lou Lamoriello's son Chris born in?
Panama Canal. But I don't know the town though.
My God, Sam. How did you know?
Is that it?
How
is that
did
it?
you know?
I
Well,
read
Panama
Stan
Canal is
Fisher's
not a
book.
town.
I read Stan Fisher's book.
Oh, that's funny.
I need a town, though. We need town names. You read the book. You should know. You don't have babies in a canal, Sam.
I'll admit, I try to rig the game. I try to bribe Vinny. Give me the dumbest question that I can answer, and we'll make it up too.
It was actually a 9-question quiz, but I threw that in there to have a little fun with you, Nick. All right. So, question number 1. The Devils won the Cup in 95. How many teams were in the league? Nick answered 23, and Sam answered 28. You were both wrong. It was 26.
Oh.
I was
I
closer.
wanted to jump back. I honestly thought it was closer to in between those two numbers, but it's fine.
Yeah, I did enjoy
I forgot.
Sam's
I thought the Sharks were later. I think the Sharks were 93.
Yeah. And then when I asked you to name 2 or 3 players from that inaugural Devils team, Nick got 2 of the 3, and Sam got 3 of the 3, so that's the point for him. Question 3 was how many wins the Devils have in that season. The answer was 17. You both got it wrong. Sam was right in guessing that Scott Stevens scored 18 goals in that inaugural season.
Really?
Question 5. Yeah. It's a decent amount of goals. It was his career high of 50 points. And then question 5, you both got right. The Devils making the playoffs in 88 for the first time ever. Question 6, Sam punted on, giving Nick a free point because Jean-Sebastien Jaguar wrongfully won the Conn Smythe Trophy when Martin Brodeur clearly deserved to win it.
I'm sticking with my answer. No regrets.
I was a little kid, and I understand that it was certainly supposed to go to Brodeur. Question number 7.
Did he break the record? That was preposterous.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Question 7 was who came to the Devils with Kovalchuk. It was Anssi Salmela.
Oh, I remember him. Salmonella.
I remember the name. He did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, no, he played like 2 years in the NHL. He's a defenseman. Brian Rafalski went undrafted. You both got that one right. And Steve Tambellini scored the first hat trick in New Jersey Devils history.
Wow.
I believe you both guessed Broughton, if I'm not mistaken.
And I got the Chris Lamoriello question right.
Yeah, and you got the Chris Lamoriello question right. But if we're ignoring that question,
you said a town. The Panama Canal is not a town. I am fighting that to the death.
Well, even
I'm fighting that to the death of guinea pigs and of duels.
Sam is our winner of the game by a score of 5-3.
What? Did I just win? Did I just
You
win?
won.
I just won.
Very good game, gentlemen. I hope that was a little bit fun.
Wait, which one did Sam get right? If he got 5 of 9. Hold on, he got the he got that Stevens. Did you know that Stevens, Sam?
You're breaking up, Nick. I remember when I was a kid, I used to memorize stats, and that's the only reason why I knew that.
Well, that's not fair. I'm facing the Devil's Rain Man.
Because he lost out the Norris Trophy to Brian Leach, and that was Brian Leach's career year, absolute. That '94 Rangers team. I mean, I don't know. They just all came together that year, and then they went back to normal. Been normal since.
That was really some season. He actually even got Hart Trophy votes that season. He came in 7th. Sam also got named 3 players.
Kathy writes, Panama Canal is not a town. Close enough.
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna say? If I ever have a baby, I'm gonna tell my family members, oh, where'd you have it? Oh, I had it, and I'm gonna look up the nearest canal to wherever I have my baby. Well, I'm not having the baby, but wherever my wife has the baby, I'm gonna look up the nearest canal. I'm gonna tell all of her family members, hey, we had it in the Tampa Canal. And they'll be like, what?
That's funny. I did not include.
It's not a town. That's not a place where you have a baby.
That's funny. I did not include that question in Sam's total of 5. He got he named 3 players from the inaugural team. He got Scott Stevens, the Devils making the playoffs in '88, Rafalski being undrafted. That's where
Did he break up?
Point.
That 4. That was 4.
Huh?
Isn't that 4?
Yeah.
Did I just
Question
count 4?
8, Rafalski. You're right. It is 4. I'm bad at math. Not a math guy. I write, not do math. English, not math.
Either way, I lost. But it was just a much closer.
Yeah, no, you lost. No, yeah, you lost. Yeah.
Sorry, Vinny, I couldn't hear that. Who lost?
Listen, you got to rag on it. The guy with the internet and doing this on an iPhone.
Yeah, I don't want to rag on him too much for losing either because he does edit my Devils writing. So.
Oh, okay. Don't want to put you in a bad position, but
yeah,
Vinny,
no. I don't want to be in the doghouse.
So, Vinny, what are you plugging this week?
I'm plugging a bunch of Hall of Fame stuff. I love talking about Patrick Elias. I could tweet about Patrick Elias for days. And then we're going to be all over the draft lottery on Friday. I'm going to be heavily involved with that on Twitter and whatnot. So make sure everyone's following me at Vinny Parisi. I'm sure me, Nick, everyone will be all over that thing. And then if we get lucky for the 3rd time in 4 years, then it'll be even more, interesting how we all react. But even if they don't get lucky, then we'll really start diving into who we think they actually have a chance to draft, knowing what position they'll be in. So lots of draft lottery stuff and lots of Hall of Fame stuff coming from me.
Hey, Vinny, it's not well organized yet, but we're going to have a virtual post NHL draft lottery virtual party on the Let's Go Devils podcast for reactions. So hopefully we'll be all smiling. We got the number 1 pick. Yes. Yes.
I would love to be there.
Awesome. All right. Well, Vinny, well, thank you for coming on as the guest game host, and I'll talk to you later.
Oh, of course, anytime, guys. I love being on, and thanks again for having me.
Yep. That is Vinny Parisi of Pucks and Pitchforks. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. And Michael High writes, what happened to Maven Hall of Fame? Yeah, you know what? The Maven personally emailed me a while back and said, Sam, don't worry about the Hockey Hall of Fame. They could get me 20 years later. I'll be still writing. I was like, okay. But we'll get the Maven.
But I don't know if you heard this, Sam. You might have gotten past you, but I did email the Hockey Hall of Fame personally, mentioning Stan Fischler and me curious about his impending induction. So I've put a birdie in the ear of the Hall of Fame themselves. So we're just going to keep doing that.
You know what? I'm going to, Doc Emmerich. One time, I got to go back to our previous podcast with Doc Emmerich. He did tell us a little bit about the process in it, and the people in the committee
for a few years.
Yes. Yep. So, but
I don't think he is anymore, though, right? I think he stopped in like 2017 or 2018.
Oh, we got a Rangers fan in the Facebook Live. The haters love us. The haters love us.
I feed off the hate, Sam. I run a blog. Yeah. I feed off hate. I eat it for breakfast.
Yeah, and now Vinny Parisi is now in the Facebook Live group, and let me tell you something, Jalen. Vinny Parisi, he's like our enforcer. So don't mess with anybody because Vinny's got you. Anyway, so what do you have to plug, Nick? I
plugged a lot of what we're already going to plug. Free agency week. I'm excited about the draft lottery. We're going to have some instant reaction, and then we're going to have some reaction that comes in overnight. And then if we get a certain pick, or if it goes completely wrong, we'll have, we're going to do a lot of whatever happens. But it looks like, Sam, we're about a month away from actual hockey. So that's exciting. Yep. I'm excited to actually watch hockey. We'll go back. Hopefully we'll go back to the normal format next week. We already got guests lined up for next week. So hopefully we go back to that 8:30 start. But I will say, you guys got to go out and you got to do more 5 stars on the iTunes. Give me the iTunes 5 stars, 5 stars. If you want to ask questions in there, I'll personally answer them. But give me the 5-star comment on that iTunes. And, it'll make me and Sam smile. And in quarantine, if we can make somebody smile in quarantine. Also, I live in Florida, so you New Jersey people who are getting out of the pandemic, I'm being swallowed by it. So understand that we need 5 stars to help us get through.
Yes. And check us out after the NHL draft lottery on this Friday, for your reactions. Till next time, let's go Devils.